Hello, everyone, and welcome to Booking Mid-South Wrestling. And we're going to be talking about Mid-South Wrestling. And Rodney West got all the information, and we're going to be talking about that right here in a moment. And hey, we might even make some people mad tonight. Who knows? We'll find out later on right here on Booking Mid-South Wrestling.
Are we going to get copyrighted again? We don't need to do that.
I don't know if we'll get copyrighted or not, but you never know.
Who we making mad tonight? That's the question.
Well,
no doubt about it.
We did get copyrighted for something, but that's all right. That's going to happen. So
yeah. Well, Bill Dundee hopefully will be back with us a little bit later on. He had a situation involved right before we went on, so hopefully he will be back with us later on the program. If not, he'll be back with us next week. He is visiting family in Nashville today, so something might have come up. So hopefully he'll be back with us later on the program, or maybe next week. We'll hopefully see that. But what we're going to talk about is 1984 Mid-South Wrestling, and what a year it was. No doubt about it. And as we left you the last time, we're getting ready for the Superdome Wrestling Extravaganza, the special one during the 1984 World's Fair in New Orleans, and it was an extra one. And we're going to be covering that, all about that. In this show, the West Brothers. Yes, you can see them if you want to, right on the front row. We're going to be covering episode 248, first time ever at the Irish McDale's Boys Club, Brent. And it was everything as you expected. It's a boys club. In fact, if you look every once in a while, you can see a boxing ring that they rolled out of the way so they can put the ring up.
I thought that was a great location for wrestling. I thought the Irish McNeil Boys Club, I thought it had such a great atmosphere, and it was perfect for wrestling.
Absolutely. And the crowd was always ready. And in fact, sometimes you might have been better to be at the Irish McNeil Boys Club than the Shreveport Municipal Auditorium, because the who's who is there for wrestling. And the action was unbelievable. It was electric. Rock and Roll Express, when they came out and after all the build up, it was just electric. The people were rock and roll. Rock and roll was fantastic. And like I said, this is starting the first week of June. This was on June the 7th, 1984. And this is episode 248. And we start off with Boyd Pierce and Jim Ross talking about the upcoming Ghetto Street Fight with Butch Reed and Junkyard Dog at the Superdome. And in this particular program, neither Reed or the Junkyard Dog were going to be there live. It was all done in video form. And this was one of the key elements of how Bill Dundee promoted and pushed a match and got people ready for the matches. First one come up with Butch Reed. They re-showed all of the action. I'm talking about the painting. We're talking about the tar and feathering from Memphis. And then Reed with his lifting 450 pounds on that video. And of course, Joel Watts put this all together, and Joel was great. He was absolutely great. Very friendly, always very nice to us every time we got a chance to meet him when we went to the first Superdome, and that we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Then we had in our first match, a great match, Buddy Landale against Mike Jackson. I'm going to tell you, Mike Jackson and Buddy Landale, they put it on. They really put it on. And as Bill was saying earlier before we left, Mike Jackson knew exactly why he was there. And he did a fantastic job highlighting not only it highlighted his own moves, but in the end, Buddy Landale wins with a spinning elbow.
Yeah, Mike Jackson, he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew how to get the guy over. He knew what he needed to do with Buddy Landale, and Buddy was so good, so fluid in what he was doing. Buddy was he was probably one of the most underrated wrestlers that had ever really wrestled, because man, he had some heat in Mid-South Wrestling.
I'm telling you, he was right up there. I'm telling you, he was right up there. And when he come down the aisle, people were booing. They were booing. And back then, not everybody had music. I think very few with in Mid-South. The Midnight Express had it. Rock and Roll Express had it. Junkyard Dog had it. Adrian Street had it, I think, when he was there. And Mark Reagan, I think they had some with him. But not everybody had music back then. You came back, as we like to call it, a cappella.
That's true. Hello, Charles. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
Charles.
We thank you so much. And if you're watching right now, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to build that up and get people over here to watch some content that we're going to be moving over here completely. So, all right, Rodney, go ahead and
we'll be talking about one of Charles' favorites, Jay Youngblood, in a few minutes. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, then right after that, we had the video, the answer to Butch Reed with the Junkyard Dog, and a tremendous video. And Junkyard Dog was saying, in the end, somebody is going to get a tar and feather after what happened to him in Memphis. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on from the Superdome. Then we had the big match of Big Bob Owen. Remember Big Bob, Brent?
Yes, I do.
Big Bob Owen against Sonny King. Tell us, Sonny King, that was a surprise to us. We had not seen any TV shows. The ones that we had seen had been bicycled, so it wasn't up to date. And we were shocked, absolutely shocked at the response of Sonny King, right?
Had he done his interview yet that he said, yes, I'm from McCall, Louisiana. The people of Louisiana know who I am. Did he already do that interview?
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, what a great
interview. Talked about Butch Reed and who does he think he is, and that's when they showed the video from Memphis TV where they tarred and feathered him, and then Butch Reed and of course Bill Watts was there, and Bill Watts had to get between them because and that was unusual really, but Bill Watts got between them to keep them getting into it. But yeah, he was Sonny King. Who do you think you are? Who does he think he is?
Oh yeah,
the greatest interview I think Sonny King ever did.
Yeah,
and the people love Sonny King, and he was very different from everybody else. There was nobody else like Sonny King.
When he would throw them punches, and in their arenas, every time, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It didn't matter. Every time he hit them, they'd whoosh.
He would do that boxing, boom, 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 and that big punch, and they would go down. The people go nuts, absolutely nuts in that one. And then in that match, right after Sonny King gets Bob Owens, Sonny King wins with a headbutt. And then Buddy Landale's on the outside sending in the troops. And it was Pat Rose and Pete Martin. Remember Pete Martin?
Yes, I remember Pete Martin.
Yeah. Pete Martin was there. And he sent the troops in. And then when it was time for Landale to go in, he was not going to be heading in. Actually, our father was refereeing the match and he was trying to raise Sonny King's hand. And Sonny was having none of that. Get off me. I'm ready for Buddy Landale. Hey, Jay Smith, Brent, he's from... There you go. He's a huge Butch Reed fan. And I'm going to tell you, Reed at this point in his career, probably the best shape he's ever been in. The best shape. And when you watch him in these videos, when you watch these classic shows, he looks like he is having a ball. He really, really does. He is eating up and loving every single minute, and you can tell it, and you can see in his workability that he's loving every single bit of it. He's dedicated to his training. He's dedicated to his company. He's dedicated to his match. He's dedicated to the fans.
Is this in May of 1984?
We're looking at June. This is June. We were just spending time in Tennessee, and we finally got there. In fact, I think that's probably one of the first shows we went to is the TV. Normally on Wednesdays we had they had interviews in the mornings, and then they did the TV taping, and then every Wednesday I believe they did interviews every Wednesday at KTBS there in Shreveport. Then we have a big match, Buddy West, who no relation to us.
No. Hey, and I can remember the announcer.
Yeah, we don't like him.
I can remember
his name was Murray Fairbanks. I asked Bill. I said, Bill, earlier before he had to go. I said, Bill, where did you find that guy at? Oh my goodness! He was awful. He said, I was just shy a few years of his Mid-South days. Oh man, you missed it. You really did. In 1984, and they're available on YouTube. Check them out. They are worth the watch. But like I said, and like I've said in previous ones, it's only part of what you're going to see. What you're seeing is the generic part of the show. The real details come in the local interviews, and every single market had them from Biloxi, Jackson, Greenville, Greenwood, Alexandria, Shreveport, Monroe, all the towns. They all had their individual, these personalized interviews that really told more of the story and what the match is going to be. There's not, the wrestlers don't even appear in the main show. They're in these, what they call the Mid-South Television Network. And this is where they talk about other situations that's going on that's not really seen in these videos.
And the arena shows were so good. I mean, they really, the TV set the stage of saying, okay, this is the matches that you're going to see. But when you got to the arenas, it ain't like it is today. I mean, the matches were good and they were set to make you come back to because at that time, most towns ran every other week. And those towns were on fire back then, and they would do things on those live arena shows, what they called house shows. And I mean, there was a big kind of angles and matches and stuff done for those.
Well, we had, like I said, we had Buddy West, no relation to us, and Mark Reagan. He's not related to us either, I don't think. And they're going against the Midnight Express. And in this, before this even starts, this announcer Murray Fairbanks refused to let Jimmy Cornette have the microphone. Me and Brent, we just got there. We was ready to jump in the ring and whip him ourselves. We'd have doubled him up. I'd have thrown him out. I would have thrown him out. I thought Cornette was going to nail him. He had just about had to get that microphone. It just shows that guy never seen the show. Yeah. He just showed he never seen the show. What in the world was he doing on there? Whose friend was he? That's what I'm going to ask. I don't hate to get upset about these things. But bottom line is we were proud of what we were saying. And no more proud we were than Jim Cornette. We met him back in when we did the thing in Georgia with Georgia Championship Wrestling Superstars. We knew then this guy was going to be something big. He used to hang out with us when we lived at the old Falcons Crest was the TV show. Falcons Rest. He would walk over with us to the Chick-fil-A. We knew this guy was going to be a superstar. Absolutely. Yep. And we were so proud sitting there watching Cornette and Bobby and Dennis. And then, like I said, it was the first time we had seen them live since we moved there.
And actually,
in Tennessee.
Which way? Right here, Jim Cornette, right here, 1983. There he is with the French Angels.
French Angel, yeah, and with the hat. I missed the hat. I always miss the hat. I thought he looked like the Toddy Bowl man, but I missed the hat. It was fantastic. Then we come up with another match, and that is Wrestling 2, which was Hercules Hernandez against Jay Youngblood. And for whatever reason, we didn't realize it, but Bill Dundee had said that Watts had brought Jay Youngblood in periodically. So people had already known Jay Youngblood. And the people loved him. He was throwing those chops, and the people were responding to Jay Youngblood. It was absolutely fantastic.
I believe he was only there for a few weeks. He had gotten hurt in an angle in Mid-Atlantic. And I can't remember the two people that beat him up, but he came back as the Renegade.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
He came back and he did this thing where he had been that this was his spirit or something coming back, and he put makeup on the whole deal, and he was called the Renegade.
Oh,
so I think it was just different. I think it was just a couple of weeks he was supposed to be there.
Well, that will explain what was happening with Jay, because we thought we had just the year prior to Georgia Champion Wrestling Superstars, we were over in the Carolinas working with, our dad was over there working with Jim Crockett Promotions. And I mean, everybody was talking about Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood and the Briscoes. I mean, everywhere. I mean, you just mentioned the name in the arenas and the place would go nuts. I mean, we talk about the Rock and Roll Express and how over they were in the Mid-South, other places, but in the Carolinas, for Jim Crockett Promotions, Ricky Steamboat, Jay Youngblood was rock stars there, for no doubt about it. And in that match, Jim Ross mentioned that there was 1 million people per week. They estimated 1 million people per week were watching Mid-South Wrestling. And that is extraordinary because they were only in 4 states and just a little bit the corner of Houston and Beaumont, Texas. But basically 4 states, 1 million people. And Brent, what were you saying about the current, how many people watching
Well, right now, there's about 1.7 million people that watch it each week. Prior to everything that went on, they were doing about 2.4, but that's always pre WrestleMania. Always does. Their ratings always go up during that time. But 1.7 when you think 1 million people just in a 4-state area, and that's not that many cities as well. That's a lot of people watching wrestling each week. So. Yeah, a whole lot more people. I would say back then with the 32 territories that were on at that point, they might have been 28 million people watching wrestling.
We know 300,000 just in Memphis alone. We've heard that over and over again. Just an extraordinary amount compared to what then. I know some people say, well, you can't compare it. It's like comparing apples to oranges. No, ladies and gentlemen, it's wrestling. You either got what they want to see or you don't. There's no explanation. What did we always say if you didn't have a good crowd?
Well, I mean, the 7-Eleven was open.
7-Eleven was open. You can't blame anybody but 7-Eleven.
I understand people say that, and I get that, but I believe if you look at other sporting events, and I know that wrestling's is not considered a sport these days, but when you look at the sporting people, more people watch the Super Bowl. So you would think if you were equaling it out to what people are watching, and I'd have to get the numbers for that and one day do a program about it. But based on sporting programs, if you would have kept it a sport and not been entertainment, would you be doing a whole lot more people than what you're doing now? So I don't know, maybe not. I don't.
You never know. Like I said, in the end of that one, it was Hercules Hernandez winning, put his feet on the rope. He ripped him off. I can't believe he would do such a thing.
Hercules was really a good wrestler.
He was.
If you go back and watch, he had everything it took to be a superstar, and I believe they did him completely wrong when he went to WWF.
He was legitimately strong as well, and a tough man. You can ask old Edgar Lou Thomas about all of that.
Yes.
Yeah. Then in match 5, we got the Rock and Roll Express, and it was our first time to see the Rock and Roll Express live at one of these in the studio there at the Irish Mandel Boys Club. Was electric when they came out, going against Barry Orton again, and Pat Rose. Tremendous tag team, and again, mismatches were not the thing. And I tell you right now, and I can see exactly what they were talking about. Beating nobody is just that. You didn't accomplish anything. But you get against somebody that's going to give you a run for your money, such as Barry Orton and Pat Rose, it is worth staying tuned for, because you don't really know. You don't really know. Could this be the moment? And then, of course, the Rock and Roll Express changed up a little bit, winning with the Sunset Flip. Ricky Morton with Sunset Flip over Barry Orton. That match, just tremendous match. Jay Smith, Hercules was awesome. I wondered how he liked wearing the mask. Well, honestly, it wasn't the first time he wore a mask. He was the assassin in Mid-Atlantic. So he had worn it. And you know what? And I think it comes right down to it. He wanted to be a wrestler. So if it means he had to wear a mask to do so, then that's what he had to do. But later on, he's able to become Hercules Hernandez. We'll see that. And we'll see something that Bill Dundee did in Mid-South that carried with Cornette wherever he went. And we'll talk about that when it happens in the next few weeks. Then we go to the Oklahoma City Myriad and a match with Brad Armstrong against Ted DiBiase. Now, they only showed the highlight version of this. This match must have been 20, 30 minutes. Tremendous match. And the first thing you notice, because we watched Brad since, I don't know, forever. It was like we were there when he first started, but he wasn't. He was in the Southeastern. But Brad was wearing black boots. Brent, you ever remember black boots? Yeah. I just wondered if he's borrowed some from Bob.
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, and he looked different. And Brad was big. I mean, he was big, and you don't really know how big he is until you got him against Ted DiBiase. And the match was stellar. Absolutely stellar. This was taped at the Myriad in Oklahoma City. In the end, it was Ted DiBiase winning with his trusty glove, and that was the end of that.
And this was while they were still World Championship Wrestling. Am I correct?
Yes, and Brad was a national heavyweight champion at that time. Bill Watts was doing the narration of that. Then they end the show with a great video of Magnum TA. And we have to remember, getting all of this is all getting ready for the big Superdome Wrestling Extravaganza, and we'll get that complete card here in just a moment as we're getting ready to go into it. Now we come up to show 249, and this was done on June the 14th, 1984. We open up with another match from the Oklahoma City Myriad, and this time it's Killer Khan. Remember Killer Khan? Killer Khan against Magnum TA, and Killer Khan was vicious that evening. Yeah, there's Jay. Jay knows what we're talking about. If it's DiBiase, it's the loaded glove. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Jay. We'll talk about that later too. But yeah, Killer Khan versus Magnum TA. Magnum TA, and I mean it wasn't an easy night. I mean he was bleeding, and it came down to it. Magnum catches him real quick with the belly-to-belly suplex, and that was it. Magnum TA wins in that one. Then we have a video special of Magnum TA. Again, it was the same one that was showed prior. All of this building up to the big Superdome Wrestling Extravaganza. Then we had Barry Orton against Terry Taylor. And Brent, response of Terry Taylor, almost equal to the Rock and Roll.
Yeah, he was really over in that. They got him over, but Nikolai Volkov and Crusher Khrushchev, they really got him over really big time from the time they brought him in. I mean, they put him over and put him over and put him over and made him look like Superman. So there's no doubt why he got over. Plus, he was a good wrestler. Terry Taylor was. His punches was good. Everything about what he did was good. So I can see why he got over.
And he certainly represented what Bill Dunny was wanting. He wanted to draw expand the demographic, and Terry Taylor was one of those that he did it with, along with the Rock and Roll Express. That one ends up Crusher Khrushchev with a backbreaker. And then Khrushchev grabs the mic. He wants his medal, and he calls out Dr. Death, and he comes out, puts the medal up on the ring post, and then it was a battle. And let's just say that was a real battle.
Yeah, that was good stuff too. I mean, he would go after and he'd take them down.
And it looked like Khrushchev was doing everything he could. And I'm telling you, every time he'd get close to it, Dr. Death would put his face in the mat again. Finally, he just gets fed up with it and walks out, leaves his medal. But that was about, wasn't it, Brent?
Yeah, it was good stuff. If you've not seen it, look that up on YouTube. They're on there, or just go to the WWE Network if you're a WWE fan, because they are available on the WWE Network. Good stuff, though.
Jay Smith was saying that he was always a Terry Taylor fan.
Yeah, Terry was good. Terry was over when we went to Augusta, Georgia one night, and Terry Taylor was on the card, and he had been wrestling the Mid-Atlantic territory, and the people went nuts when he came out. And we were
kind of like, we asked Ed when we got in the car, what's the deal with Terry Taylor? He said, well, he's seen on the show from Greenville. And then so, well, that makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense. Then our good trusty friend, Pete Martin, he makes his appearance with Sonny King, and of course, Sonny King wins with a flying headbutt in that one. Buddy Landale and Mark Reagan, another tremendous match. Again, they're not slowing down at all. It's getting ready for the Superdome. They're still putting the good matches on. Buddy Landale, Mark Reagan. And of course, Buddy Landale winning with the spinning elbow. Pat Rose and Jim Duggan. Oh my goodness, what a match. Pat Rose. And you want to talk about somebody over. I mean, there's a lot. And this, in that time in 1984, I mean, just about the whole roster. You talk about Rock and Roll, Duggan, Taylor. You talk about Jim Duggan, Junkyard Dog. I mean, they were all. I mean, you could mix that card, you can mix that crew up any way you want to, and it would be a great card. And in that one, of course, it ends up with Duggan getting the spear. And then we come to a match that we were, like I said, it was the first time we'd actually been live. We got to see Mr. Wrestling, which is Mr. Wrestling 2, the original, and Jay Youngblood against the Midnight Express. And it was something about that match. And of course, when you're watching it, we're live. We're sitting right there in the front row. It was beyond anything we ever mentioned. The match continues. People kind of lukewarm to Mr. Wrestling. They're still not liking him at all. I mean, they really are not. And then, even though he's had a situation with the Protege Wrestling too, I think it's kind of split the crowd. And it was no more evident in this, because in the match, Dennis Condrey was being held by Mr. Wrestling 2. Jay Youngblood goes for a chop. Dennis moves out of the way, hits 2, then 2 and Jay Youngblood get into it.
Yeah.
Jay Youngblood says, fine, if that's the way you want to have it, if you want to wrestle, you can just do it by yourself. And he walks out of the match, leaving Mr. Wrestling to the Midnight Express. And the people kind of, were, half and half. Yeah, okay, he's taking them on. He's looking real good. This is kind of like the old Wrestling 2 or Mr. Wrestling or whatever we used to live with. And it was all kind of going his way until Cornette handed Dennis Condrey a belt. And when he did, and they stretched Mr. Wrestling out, and started whipping him, that crowd went. It was not like anything we had seen before, was it, Brent?
No.
People were up screaming, beat that old man. That is exactly, we ain't never seen anything like that.
We've talked about this before. Wrestling 2 went from being a bad guy, just teaming with Jay Youngblood. There was no rhyme and reason for it. There was no reconciling. Yes. What you said with Magnum TA, there was none of that. And he just came out one day and he was a good guy. He was, and you were thinking, man, no wonder they didn't care if he got beat up.
No.
They took months to get him to where he was at.
You're trying to take a few weeks, it wasn't, and it wasn't going to work. It was the way that whole situation unfolded. There was really no coming back. There was only one way he can be, and that was it. In fact, I think if they went any further with the Midnight, I think it would be the Midnight ended up being being the favors. I really do, because it was beyond anything. And right after that, it wasn't soon after that he left, but I think a missed opportunity there. Something we wanted to point out. And you don't notice it, like I said, when you're sitting in the crowd, because you don't hear the commentary, but we watched it back. And we noticed that before anything happened, right at the beginning of the match, Jim Ross had mentioned that the Wrestling 2 and the Midnight had this history in which he was whipped. And we're thinking, well, the Midnight hasn't done this since then. And all of a sudden, it's like Jim Ross is Nostradamus or something. He's telling people before it happened, and basically telegraphs what was going to happen. And instead of waiting for it to happen, he kind of gives it, he kind of lets the cat out of the bag before it even happens. And we noticed that this was kind of a regular thing that Jim Ross did. And I'm not sure whether it comes where he was, I know he's trying to help, not doing it purposely. Maybe it was, subconsciously doing it, but he'd not done it once, but he did it several times. He would try to help the storyline along and basically tell what was going to happen before it happened. Many times we said, hey, what in the world is this?
Yeah, I don't know that he did it on purpose. I think he was learning. He was in his learning curve of being a commentator, and I don't know that he meant to do it. I think he just did it, and we see that in a couple instances, and we were really wishing that we could take the video and show people where he did it, but we end up with a copyright strike.
Copyright will get us again. Yeah, no more copy. We don't want that. Anyway, it ends up with the whole Sonny King coming out finally and breaking up the Midnight Express, whipping Mr. Wrestling. Rock and Roll finally come out. And, I mean, it's a big Sonny King, and then Buddy Landale jumps on Sonny King again. And it ended up all right. But like I said, it was Wrestling 1. And then I remember Bill Dundee coming down the steps, walking by us, and he said, I just turned my heel team. Yeah. He said that play that they had his suitcase since he was walking around. At the end of the show, Boyd Pierce makes the announcement that coming up in the next few weeks, we're going to see the Pretty Young Things and the Fantastics. And those who don't know who the Pretty Young Things are, it's Norvell Austin and Coco Ware, and the Fantastics with Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers.
Boyd Pierce in his beautiful.
He was in his. He was styling. He was styling with a loud, very loud suit. It was something. Now we're ready for the Superdome Wrestling Extravaganza. This is the first time we'd ever been to the Superdome, an indoor stadium. In that fact, of course, we got there way in the afternoon. It seemed like we got there at 3 in the afternoon, And we explored every bit of that Superdome. We were way up top in the cheap seats. I don't think they sold those. I think they were not a part of the arena part of the Superdome. But we were all over. In fact, I got yelled at and told me, "You're not supposed to be up here." Well, anyway, we were there. I guess it was a security guard come up there to get us. But you should see when we got up there to the top of that ring looked like, I don't know, it looked like just a little box. I mean, it was something. And this is the first time we actually got to meet Joel Watts. He was very nice.
Yeah, he was.
Very, very nice to us. And he had that smile on his face like we were up to something. We got it. I wonder if Dad was telling him stories about us. Could be. So here we go with the match. It's the Superdome Wrestling Extravaganza. It was on June, I think it was June 16th. They say with the information we have here, nearly 21,000 people for that event. And I mean, it was a big matches from beginning to the end. Starts off with Buddy Landale against Sonny King. So Buddy Landale wins that one. And then the second match, imagine this, second match after we just reviewed the great situation where they ethered Robert Gibson. In the second match, it was a Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express. No disqualification with Jim Duggan handcuffed to Jim Cornette. And that was hilarious, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to tell you right now. When they got the Cornette handcuffed to Jim Duggan, you don't remember, he would do that fast walk. Well, he was dragging Cornette from corner to corner. He was in there putting his hands on his hips, and he was walking back. And I mean, Cornette looked like a rag doll, just dragging him up and down through there. He would sit down beside Cornette, and they would start the match. He was going, "Come on, Bobby." He said, "No, you need to holler for the others." He making him clap for the rock and roll. It was super. It was absolutely super. In that match, Wendy Richter comes out there and then puts the ether on Duggan, knocks him out. Ends up with Midnight Express winning that one. They retained the Mid-South Tag Team Championship, no disqualification.
And
think about it. That was the second match.
And everybody remember soon after, Wendy Richter would end up in the WWF and be a big star there.
She was very much in demand.
Yes.
Wendy Richter, just absolutely. No disqualification match come up. It's going to be Mr. Wrestling. Mr. Wrestling is Mr. Wrestling 2. Mr. Wrestling 2 ends up winning that one. Like I said, pretty much after that, I think the original Mr. Wrestling 2. I think he leaves. Women's World Tag Team Championship match. Princess Victoria Velvet McIntyre against Wendy Richter and Peggy Lee Leather. Remember Peggy Lee?
Yep, Peggy Lee Leather.
Peggy Lee Leather, yeah, fantastic match. And, of course, that was Princess Victoria and Velvet McIntyre. They win that one. And then we had the match from World Class. It was Chris Adams and Stella Mae French against Jimmy Garvin and Precious. And I'm going to tell you, of course, I've already saw everything because World Class played in every market, I think, over there. And I'm going to tell you, when that bell rang and Jimmy Garvin and Precious come down that aisle, it was like they had been there the whole time. And what a tremendous match. Ended up with Chris Adams and Stella Mae over on that one. But, yeah, just tremendous match. Mid-South Television Championship. Crusher Khrushchev defending against Terry Taylor. And, boy, did the place go unglued when Terry Taylor beat Crusher Khrushchev, becomes the Mid-South Television Champion. It was something. And look how long it took. I mean, Taylor had to go through the TV tournament. It wasn't just something that happened overnight. He had to earn it, and he did. And it really paid off.
But he did not receive the Mid-South TV medal. And that will be coming up, and we'll tell people.
That's actually coming up on the next shows for sure. North American Heavyweight Championship, then Magnum TA, and he wins against Ted DiBiase. Glove didn't help him that time. And, of course, that match was a no disqualification match. But TA still the North American champion. And the last match, Butch Reed against the Junkyard Dog in the Ghetto Street Fight. And it was everything you thought it was going to be. It was a battle from beginning to end. Reed and Junkyard Dog put it on. They put it on.
They did. It was a great match.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And this is the beginning. Right at the end, the referee gets knocked out of the ring. And here comes Buddy Landale. Landale was stopped. And then it was the big surprise as Ernie Ladd returns to the Superdome and costs the Junkyard Dog as he did a double leg drop. Then Landale and and Ernie Ladd and Butch Reed. And of course, Reed wins the match. Then it was all three of them on the Junkyard Dog. And then here comes the troops come in, and it was all Buddy Landale left by himself. And of course, they were going to try to tar and feather the Junkyard Dog again. But this time it turned over, and it was Buddy Landale ended up with a chicken soup that time.
Is this the night that Buddy Landale breaks Dad's nose?
Yes, it was. I mean, Landale goes for the big elbow. My father was down to give the 3 count on Junkyard Dog, and drives that elbow on my back of my dad's head there. Breaks his nose, and he's over there, and you can see on the video that shows in the next show on there. They show it, and Dad's sitting there telling, I think it was either Randy Anderson or Carl. He said, "I think I broke my nose," and he did. He broke his nose.
That happened to 2 people almost the same exact way. Tom Pritchard did that to Tommy Weathers one time as well. The same elbow.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, Dad was like, he come out there and has nose all. I mean, it's swollen. It was broke. It was broke all to pieces.
Buddy Landale, there's shoot interviews with Buddy Landale, and he tells the story of when he breaks Dad's nose. He said he felt really bad about it, but yeah, Buddy Landale was one of a kind. There's no doubt.
Exactly right. Tremendous card, tremendous show, no doubt about it. And this just, and like I said, the Superdomes were not the end of anything. They were always the beginning. And then you had Ernie Ladd coming in. You had now the beginning situation with Jim Duggan and the Midnight Express. And like I said, and then further from that, PYT and the Fantastics are on the way as well. So a lot going. I mean, it's not slowing down anytime soon. No time soon. And of course, we'll cover all that and more right here on it.
And we want you to do one thing, if you can, for us. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And we'll be putting a lot of content right here on YouTube. And Rodney, do we have everything covered for this week?
I believe we've got everything covered. We're going, and like I said, it's just warming up. Next time on here, Fantastics. Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers will make their first appearance. Got the PYT on the way, so it's a lot of stuff. Jim Duggan might get some revenge as well. So we got a lot of stuff coming up in the next few weeks. And make sure we're going to be here on the YouTube channel. I thought we're going to be playing on Facebook anymore. We're going to be playing this exclusively right here. Hopefully we'll be able to get Bill Dundee back on. Apparently some emergency has arisen. He was not able to get back with us, but hopefully be back with us again next week.
All right. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next episode of Mid-South Wrestling.